Okay. Hello, good evening. Welcome to stage C at the Athens Bar Show. Next on stage is Kate, probably because it's full, so you know her. No further introduction.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you. My name is Kate. Kate Gerwin. I own a bar in the U.S. called Happy Accidents. We don't make mistakes. We just have happy accidents. I've made a lot of mistakes, just so everyone knows. Hopefully, in life, the one lesson you learn is to turn all of your mistakes into happy accidents, because that's what I try to do. My bar is a 175-seat cocktail bar and a distillery in the U.S. We're just gonna, that's me. Those are some things. So I'm a bartender. That's essentially what I am. I own a bar. I will always be a bartender. I think we have the greatest jobs in the world. But I did not start out as a bartender in this industry. I actually was in the wine industry. I grew up in Sonoma and Napa. And I wanted to be a winemaker, and I used to shovel grapes. And I worked in wineries, and I was a sommelier. And I constantly had people tell me I had a good palate. People would always, we do wine tastings, I work with chefs, and people would be like, man, you have a great palate. And I'm like, cool, dope, I don't really know what that means, but yay. But I would taste wines with people all the time, and some people would say, like, I taste cherries, or I taste chocolate, and I'd be like, well, I taste leather. And I don't understand why you taste things that I don't taste, and anyone that's ever done this, you kind of go through this process where you're like, I don't understand how this all works. So I started kind of doing a deep dive into how we taste, how the brain registers taste. And this is, I'm old-ish. I'm 46, so this is like 20 years ago when I was in my young 20s, and there wasn't a lot of science, there wasn't a lot of tests on how we taste. The one kind of good side effect of COVID was that there has been a lot more research done on taste. But taste has never been a function that we need to survive, because no matter what we'll eat, because we get hungry, our gastrointestinal juices will get stimulated, and eventually we'll feed ourselves. But we really rely on our sense of sight, and our sense of hearing, and our sense of smell to survive. And I tell people when we're talking about our senses, we have the 5 senses, right? Sight, touch, and taste are the same. Hearing and smelling. And when we talk about those, the one that we really rely on the least is taste. It's actually the least most important sense that we have as humans, because we don't need it to survive. We're gonna eat, and eventually we're gonna survive. So there wasn't a lot of science behind how we taste. I'll figure it out eventually. So I started to try and figure out what taste actually is, and how the brain registers flavor. We actually use really bad language when we talk about taste, because when we talk about something and how it tastes, you say, how does that cocktail taste? Or how does that strawberry taste? You say, well, it tastes like a strawberry. But does a strawberry taste like a strawberry? Or does it smell like a strawberry? Or does it look like a strawberry? The funny thing is, it actually smells more like a strawberry than anything else. It doesn't really taste like much at all, because your sense of taste is actually pretty lame. It's kind of like very unadvanced. And it doesn't really do a lot for human function. It really doesn't propel us through the world the way our sight does. And what I tell people, and what we try and figure out, is how the brain registers flavors, and how we categorize flavors in our brain. And we think it happens in our mouth, right? We think that taste is really important. But what we really should say is, what's the flavor of that? Because flavor is a snapshot that your brain takes of all 5 senses. This taste is only what happens in your mouth, and we only taste 5 things. Does anybody know what they are? I know you do, and the answer is like right up there. So if you can read, I swear to God, there's a cheat sheet in everything I do. I don't make things hard. It's just easier when you talk back to me, and then I can talk to you guys. So taste is what happens in our mouth. It is one of our 5 senses, and the only thing that we really taste is sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and umami. Everyone know what umami is? Just so we get that right off the board. A sense of savory, richness found in meats, proteins, tomatoes, mushrooms, things of that nature. That's the only thing our mouth registers. Very, very unadvanced. And basically what we have is we have these little things in our mouth called taste buds. And when you put something in your mouth and you use your saliva in your mouth to break it down, sorry, I get closer, it's really weird. You have these little things called taste busters. They're basically cell receptors, and they send an impulse to the cranial nerve on the back of your brain that says, this is sour, right, or this is salty. And essentially in every one of those 5 components, there is a little bit of something that triggers that component. So if you're tasting something salty, it's sodium chloride, and the cell receptor wakes up and goes, sodium chloride is there, it's salty. If you're tasting something sour, it's a hydrogen ion, right? Everything that contains sour or acidity has a hydrogen ion in it, and that little receptor goes, oh, hydrogen ion, that is obviously sour. If you're tasting something sugary, it's lactose or fructose, right? If you're tasting something umami, it's glutamic acid, monosodium glutamate, right? So those are all, the only thing that your tongue registers is those 5 things. So as taste creators and taste makers, that actually makes our job a little bit more difficult because we don't really understand, we don't really talk about what happens in our brain. And what I try and relate it to in really common sense for everybody is that in order to register a new flavor, in order to hit what I call a core memory, something that you want to hold on to, that's what we're trying to achieve with our guests. We're trying to give them a core memory. In order to our brain to grab a core memory, we have to have a sense of balance between the things that we taste. Because if something is out of balance, too sugary or too salty, our body, our brain will say, please don't give me any more of that, right? I don't want anything too salty, I have enough sodium chloride. I don't want anything too sugary, right? I have enough sugar. But our body craves these things and they change over time. You ever notice when you're a kid, you like things that are really sugared, right? Sweet. Why do kids like sugar? Why do we need sugar when we're younger? So we're like growing bones, right? We're literally growing a human. What is sugar? Sugar is calories. Your body needs calories to grow a human. Have you ever noticed that your taste changes as you get older? You might like bitters better. You might like vitamins better. Well, what are bitters? If your tongue registers bitters, it's over 35 different protein compounds that are mostly found in plants. Plants contain vitamins. When we get older, we need more vitamins and less calories. So our taste perceptions change over time. On top of that, our sense of balance changes over time. So as tastemakers, we have a lot to accomplish because we're trying to create balance for everybody. Can we do that? Is there a balance for everybody in the world? Absolutely not. There is no sweet spot for balance. There is no balance for everybody in the world. If you are creating cocktails for yourself, if you are creating an entire menu of drinks that you love, in my professional opinion, you have missed the mark. We create cocktails to try and touch someone's soul, to try and give them a core memory, to try and unlock something that they hold on to for the rest of their lives. And in order to do that, there's different ranges of balance for everybody. Some people like sweeter cocktails. Some people like more bitter cocktails. Does anybody in here like Fernet? Does anybody in here not like Fernet? I don't like Fernet. I know. Like, I'm never going to be able to be in the bartender's club again. I don't love Fernet. It is not my favorite Amaro. When I drink Amaro, I want a Verna, or I want Montenegro. Why? Because Fernet for me is too bitter, right? It's too bitter for me to really enjoy. So does everybody have a different palate for bitters? Absolutely. So the first thing we'll do is you have a little piece of paper on your plate. And it looks kind of like a long strip of paper. It is called a PTC test strip. It is actually a genetic test. It is a genetic test to see if you are a super taster. Has anybody ever heard of that? Don't put it in your mouth. Just hold on, Tiger. We'll get there together. We're on this journey together. You're gonna stay with me. It doesn't smell like anything, I promise. So this is an actual genetic test. Do you think that gender has anything to do with the way you taste? It does, absolutely. There's a lot of factors in how you taste. And gender is absolutely a factor in how you taste. And which gender tends to be more sensitive to bitters? Women. Why? We carry children. What are bitters? Anybody that works in a bar or knows what bitters are, what are bitters? Bitters are toxins, right? We call bitters amaros or a digestif. Why are they a digestif? When you put them in your mouth and you swallow them, your stomach starts to work. What is it doing? Your stomach is sensing all of those toxins and being like, holy crap, this girl is trying to poison me. I better start working on getting this out of my body because she ingests any more of this crap, I could die. Now, granted, we all know that Fernet isn't going to kill you before the alcohol probably is. However, if you did keep ingesting toxins, you could die. And as hunters and gatherers, as humans, women tend to need to be more careful for bitters because we carry children. So in science and in biology, women tend to be what's called super tasters, if you've ever heard that term. But I'm also going to tell you really quick, super taste doesn't mean that you are better at tasting anything than anyone else in the world. It doesn't mean that I have this heightened sense of a palate. It just means I'm more sensitive to bitters, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So this PTC test strip that you have, you are going to put it on your tongue. When you do that, if you instantly taste bitters and want to spit that piece of paper out, you are a super taster. If you put it on your tongue and you don't taste anything but paper, you're just a regular old human taster. Again, it doesn't mean that you're better or worse, it just means you're more sensitive to bitters. Eventually, if you let it sit on your tongue for a very long time, everyone will taste bitters, just so you know. It is an instantaneous thing. Those of you who taste it will taste it instantly. Go ahead and put it on your tongue. If you taste bitter, get it, yeah, so that face right there, you're a super taster. Yeah, you probably like sugar in your coffee and don't love Fernet, right? Those of you who don't taste anything, yay for you. I'm super sensitive to bitters. So when I design my cocktail menus, right, I don't like Negronis. I don't like bitter cocktails. Does that mean that I don't put them on my menu? Does that mean that I don't have cocktails like that? Absolutely not, because making drinks is not about me. We'll all try and remember that for the rest of our lives. Making drinks is not about me, it's about the guest. And if we are not creating what I call balanced cocktail menus, then we're missing the mark. Because it's not about what I like, it's about giving everybody a core experience where they can unlock the little file cabinet and put something in the file cabinet that says, I enjoyed this new experience that this person gave me and I'll remember it for life. Remember the first time you ever taste cookies or chocolate chip cookies and you remember grandma's house or whatever it is, and then every time you eat a chocolate chip cookie you think about that amazing experience? That's what we try and do for our guests. We want to unlock a new experience for them that they'll hold on to forever. And that has to do with our sense of taste, our sense of smell, our sense of sight, and our sense of touch. Right? All 5 senses are how we unlock that core experience. So if you're not paying attention to the way your drink looks, if you're not paying attention to the garnish, to the glassware, sorry, I'll talk about that in a minute too. If you're not paying attention to all of those things, you're not going to unlock those core experiences for your guests, right? Very, very important stuff. So raise your hand if you're a super taster. So if you look around the room, that's about 1/3 of the people in this room. So that's just one example of how different everybody in this world tastes. And when people come into my bar, and people come in to talk to my bartenders, and they ask the god-awful question that everybody asks every time they come into a bar, what's good here? Right? What's good here? Well, we put a whole freaking menu together. We actually thought all of those things were good. That's why we put them on a menu. Yay for us. Right? That's a loaded question. And of course I don't say that to the guest. What I usually say to the guest, or they'll say, what do you like? Well, I drink mezcal neat. Well, I don't like mezcal. Cool. Then you're probably not going to want to drink what I drink. Okay? But that's not what we're trying to do for our guests. So what I usually do is I flip it around. It doesn't really matter what I like. Why don't you tell me what you normally drink? If a guest comes in and they say, what's good here? I say, well, what do you normally drink? Well, I really like Negronis. I have instantly gone, okay, great. I understand that you like Negronis. You probably like bitter cocktails. I'm going to steer you to this side of my menu where all of these boozy, stirred, bitter cocktails are. And I'm probably not going to recommend a pina colada, even though it's the #1 selling drink, right? Not in my bar, but you know what I'm saying. And if you walk in and you say, I love margaritas or I love gimlets, I know you like sour drinks, and I'm going to steer you into that direction. And if you come in and you're like, I love pina coladas and dancing in the rain, I know that you probably like sweeter drinks. And then I can get you what you like because it doesn't matter what I like. Because taste is subjective. And taste is based on many, many, many factors that all are different depending on who you are as a human. So, one of the big, huge things that we forget about when we talk about taste is the difference in smell and taste. And although we think what we taste is the most important thing when registering a new flavor, it is not. Probably one of the least important things. Smell is the most important thing when we talk about taste. Smell is huge. And as an example, to show you the difference in taste and smell, so there's one way we smell, right? Only one? Through your nose? Is that true? Do you smell through your mouth? Absolutely smell through your mouth. So we have the orthonasal and the retronasal passage. Right? The orthonasal is your nose, up and down, smell. Have you ever noticed when you're sick and you can't smell anything, and then you put it in your mouth and you can taste it? It's because you're smelling through the retronasal passage in the back of your throat. And you've ever watched any of those weird YouTube videos where people take a noodle and like sneeze and then they put it through their nose and like, I know, floss it back and forth? Or if you've ever like thrown up and it's come out of your nose, sorry. That is, we all know, right? That is, not yesterday. That is the retronasal passage in the back of your throat, back of your nose and your throat, and you actually do smell through your mouth. So for an example, and just to give you a kind of, a little bit of a wake-up call is the difference in smelling and tasting, you have a mint leaf on your plate. Don't do it yet. Just kidding. I'm going to walk you through the process. I'm going to give you the cheat code so that we don't cheat, because it's not really about the answer, it's about the experience. So what you're going to do is you're going to put the mint leaf in your mouth, not yet. You're going to plug your nose, and you're going to chew without breathing. Everybody knows how to chew without breathing, because if you chew while you breathe, you're just going to breathe through the retronasal passage and smell it. You're going to chew on the mint leaf, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to taste. You're going to taste bitterness. That is all you're going to taste. You're going to taste bitterness. Why do plants have bitterness? It is a natural defense mechanism for the plant to please ask the bug to stop eating it. All plants have them. It's a toxin. So you're going to taste bitter. So you'll put the mint leaf in your mouth, you'll chew, 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 you'll taste bitter, then you're going to release your nose. Everybody go ahead and do that real quick. And then release. Pretty crazy the difference. Would you have identified the mint as mint if you could not breathe? If you could not? Absolutely not. Anyone who says that they can is literally just lying. It's just science. It's just how the body works. So when you're tasting your drink, how important is smell? Pretty fucking important, right? How important is taste? Yeah, it's actually not. And that sucks, because we are all so reliant on it. We're like, oh, that tastes balanced, that tastes this, that tastes that. It really doesn't actually make that big of a difference. The sight is huge. The sight is the sense that we rely on the most as humans. So the way something looks is really important. If you put a strawberry in your mouth and it wasn't red, would it still red? Would you register it as a human, as a strawberry? You actually wouldn't, because we've done this test a million times. If you couldn't smell it and you couldn't see it, would you know what it is? You actually wouldn't, because taste is lame. Taste doesn't give us a lot of information. It gives us very little information. Same thing with tactile sensations, though, just so you know. If you put an almond in your mouth and it didn't crunch, would your brain unlock the almond file and bring it to you and set it in your lap? Your brain would get confused, because it doesn't have all 5 things that formed the file to put in the brain that said, I will remember this forever as an almond. I will remember this forever as a strawberry. And all of those things have to combine in order for your brain to release it, for you to say, oh, I recognize this. I know exactly what this is. Has anyone ever seen the taste map? Or they say you taste certain things on your tongue, sweets on the front, bitter on the back. It's a big fat lie, just so everyone knows. Scientifically disproven in the 80s. I was recently in a bar in, we won't even say where, and they said, well, we had this special glass designed so that you really taste the savoriness of this cocktail, and the angle of where you drink from will make the liquid hit on the right spot of your tongue so it tastes more savory in this glass than the other glass. And I was like, cool story. Not true, but yay! It's 100% false. All of your taste buds are scattered all over the place. They're everywhere. There is one exception to that. Every human will be more sensitive to bitters on the back of the tongue, all the way in the back on the circumvallate papillae. Why is it important that we're sensitive to bitters in the back of our throat? Because bitters are toxins, and we want to be able to spit them out before we die, because that's a thing. So all of those things are wrong on the top. They're located everywhere. They're on the sides of your tongue. They're on the front of your tongue. They're actually on the epiglottis. They're on the sides of your cheek. When you're a child, you'll have taste buds on the roof of your mouth, but you'll outgrow those when you get a little bit older. That's a function of breastfeeding. And then even fun, more and more fun about taste. Your taste buds are regenerated every 7 to 10 days. Every 7 to 10 days, a taste bud dies, and then it comes back. So does your taste change over time? How does that work? We'll talk about the tongue. So I hope you've looked at your tongue. I hope everyone's looked at their tongue, right? Because you should look at your tongue if you haven't. But if you haven't, go home, look at the back of your tongue. There's these big, huge bumps that look like warts. There's little circles here, and then there's little ones on the side that kind of look like slits and gills. And they're all different, and there's 3 different types of taste papillae, and they all have different functions. And essentially, if we were to enlarge them, these little guys right down here, those are the taste buds. These are the things that we see on the top of our tongue that we think are taste buds. They're actually not taste buds, they're taste papillae, and they're little vessels so that when we break down food and mix it with saliva, it goes down into those little crevices, okay? And it will hit the taste buds, and those taste buds will send a chemical reaction to the brain, and they'll say, I taste sweet, or I taste sour. Here's where things get even more fun as we get to grow older. Every human has anywhere between 2,000 and 10,000 taste buds. Anywhere between 2,000 and 10,000. That's a huge difference between people. And every 7 to 10 days, all of those regenerate. Even more fun. Half of our taste buds are only responsible for one taste. So half of those 10,000 will only register one thing. They're only responsible for one thing, and that's the intensity of it. So this one little taste bud is like, I only care about sweet, sugar is my friend, and then in 7 to 10 days, if it dies, it might not be replaced by the same one. And that's how our taste changes over time. And why does it do that? Well, because our body needs different things to survive and to grow and to function as we get older. If we have vitamin deficiencies, we'll crave different things. If we have a disease, we could crave different things. If we need more vitamins. Have you ever noticed how women, when they're pregnant, have weird cravings? Maybe their body needs different things. Spoiler alert, they do. And most women need a lot more folic acid. Does anyone know what a really good source of folic acid is? Pickles! Ever heard women get craving of pickles when they're pregnant? Crazy how that works. Wow. That makes our job fun, huh? Cool, we get to do all these different factors, and all these different factors are going to change over time, and possibly every 7 to 10 days, our taste could change, depending on our body, depending on the vitamins that we need, depending on if we change our lifestyle. It's really, really confusing. So every human has 3 different types of taste papillae. There's 3 different kinds. There's the fungiform, and you don't have to know all this, it's just random shit in my brain. Actually, it's science shit. We have the fungiform papillae, and every human has about 200 to 400 of those. And underneath that papillae, only about 3 to 5 taste buds. In the back of your throat, they have the circumvallate papillae. Those are the big wart-like looking ones. Those have thousands of taste buds underneath them. They're usually in the back of your throat, and we only have about 7 to 12 of those, and they usually are really responsible for bitterness. And then you have the foliate papillae, and every human has about 20 of those. And underneath those, you'll have about 400 taste buds, which can equate to anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 taste buds. Now, I already told you half of those taste buds only register one thing, right? Just for intensity. The other half of those taste buds will register all 5 things, but they'll do it in a priority state. And again, when they're regenerated, they might not have the same priority. They'll change over time. So everybody's taste, have you ever noticed if you taste something and 4 months later you can taste it and you're like, oh, it's just not the same? it's actually literally not the same. Your brain is sending different chemical reactions up to 2 spots on your brain. So whenever those taste buds react to something, whether it's the hydrogen ion or the fructose or the MSG or whatever it is, it sends a message through the cranial nervous system to the bottom of the brain. And from there it splits into 2 different spots. One of them is on the front top of your brain called the olfactory receptor, and it's responsible for a lot of the registration of smell, and it's right here on the front of your brain. The other half of them are sent down into the cranial nerve where the medulla oblongata is, and that's the area that's responsible for memory. Isn't it crazy how our tastes are tied into memories? Have you ever noticed you taste something and you remember where you were and who you were with and if you had a bad time? That's because half of our taste is actually stored in the hippocampus. Half of our taste is stored in the place where we hold on to memories. And as bartenders, we want to create memories for people. And in order to do that, we have to unlock all of these different categories. We have to really pay attention to all of these different things. One thing I forgot, and I'm just going to bring it up just because I talked about sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and umami. What is spicy? Is spice a taste? Does anybody know what spice is? It's a reaction to pain, which is touch.
But what about fat?
Fat? Fat is glutamic acid, proteins and fats. It's like MSG, it's savory. But your tongue does not register the actual fat content. It registers what is in the fat. So different types of fat will have different types of MSG in it.
Okay.
It's like a protein. So spice. Spice is a reaction to pain. It is a sense of touch. And if you've ever gotten capsaicin oil on your fingers and touched your eye, you immediately know we don't taste in our eyes, right? And you taste it on your lips. So spice is not actually a taste. It is just a pain response. The other thing about pain is what can you get resistant to? What can you build up a tolerance to? Pain. Can you do that with spice? Absolutely. It's an important thing to know. I tend to really shy away from spicy cocktails. I get it if people like it. But for me personally, I'm never going to be able to please everybody with a spice level because people are very different depending on how they're raised, how much spice they're used to eating in their daily life. I was born in California, did not eat a lot of spicy foods. I moved to New Mexico. I was like, holy shit, everything's really freaking spicy here. And I lived in New Mexico for 15 years, and now I'm like, bring it on, right? Because I developed an actual pain tolerance to spice. It's really hard to reach a large group of people in that pain tolerance, especially if you're doing cocktail competitions. Just stop doing spicy cocktails. You're not going to please everyone. It's really difficult to do so. So you have some things on your plate. We're going to go through a couple of them, and then we're going to do it again. But when we talk about balance, and we talk about the need for the human body to have balance, it's really important that we understand how these things react on our actual tongues and how they move through our palate. And I say move because they're all very different. So we all know what sugar is, right? We all know what sugar tastes like. Have you ever just really paid attention to the way that sugar reacts in your mouth? So there's sugar on your plate. Just stick your finger in the sugar, put it in your mouth. Taste, just so you know, you have sugar, you have salt, you have MSG. You have a lime wedge, which is essentially acid. And then you have bitters, because it's an easy way to do bitters. If you ever want to do this, we do this a lot with our staff, and you want bitters without aromatics, caffeine tablets are a great way to get just bitters. I carry these little pieces of paper and MSG and a lot of powdered things in my suitcase. I try not to carry mashed up pills in my suitcase because TSA doesn't like me very much at all. And I have a hard enough time explaining the MSG and the little strips of paper in my bag, so we're not going to, we just don't do the caffeine pills. It's enough. It's enough for me to travel with. So, but if you ever want to do this but bitters are an easy way to do it. So if you put the sugar on your palate, what happens? It sits there. It does nothing. It's mouth coating. It's rich. It hangs out. What about citric acid? What if you lick the lime wedge? What happens there? First thing that happens is your mouth puckers up. And then what happens here? You salivate like freaking crazy, right? It's kind of crazy how that works. Completely different reactions. Your body is actually reacting to the hydrogen ion that landed on your tongue. So if you have something that's sweet and coats your mouth, and then you have something acidic, that cleanses your palate, right? It makes your body happy and says, okay, we can move past the taste. Maybe we can unlock some new flavors. Maybe we can pay attention to the smell. But if you take something that's too bitter, your body wants to reject it. If something is too sour, what will happen? If you drink a whole bunch of cocktails all night, and all lemon juice cocktails, what happens? You get acid reflux. That is a natural defense mechanism. Your body's saying, please stop fucking giving me citric acid. I need you to stop. And that's why we can't enjoy unbalanced things, because our body is getting too much of something, and it's a natural defense mechanism to say, please stop. Please don't give me any more. So in order to unlock these new flavors, in order to unlock the file cabinet, we have to have a sense of balance for people. And there has to be balance between all these things. We don't use, in general, a lot of MSG in cocktails. I will tell you I use it in some of our cocktails, not all. And now everybody is into saline solutions, right, in their cocktails, because it helps with balance. Use salt in your cocktails, I promise. Really great stuff. So make sure you taste all of these things individually. But then when you're done, I want you to take the lime wedge, I want you to put a little sugar on it, put a little salt on it, put a little MSG on it, and then put the little bitters on, and then put it in your mouth and tell me what you think. All of them together. It's pretty fucking good, right? I know, it's like weird because you're like, it shouldn't be good. It's just salt and sugar and acid, but it's good. And it's good because your body has said, thank you for giving me something balanced with all of the things I need. Now we can be free to look at all of the other cool little things.
Thank you so much.
I can get the pear, I can get the cinnamon, I can get the whatever other flavor you're looking for your guests to achieve. But if you don't get this right, you won't get the other part right. And our job is to get the other part right. So we have to look for balance. And we can't look for balance in between the pear and the cinnamon, because that's not where balance is achieved. We have to find the balance between the sugar source we're using, between the acid source we're using. Okay, now I'm gonna get super dorky and I'm gonna try and make sure I don't run over time. Acids, yay! I love the idea that now people are getting into acids, because I've been obsessed with acids, not the other kinds that don't, okay, we're gonna leave that alone. So we all know we have citric acid, right? Citric acid is lemons. Everybody now knows about malic acid. Where is malic acid mostly found?
Apples. Green apple.
Green apples. Do you know the difference in a lemon and a lime? A lemon is 100% citric acid. A lime is generally 80% citric acid and 20% malic acid. Apples are malic acid. What's tartaric acid?
Grapes.
Grapes. What is absorbic acid? Vitamin C, which is? Oranges. That's why orange juice cocktails suck. Does oranges have the same acidity as citric acid? No. That's why everybody's now acidifying their orange juice. Right? So all of these things have acids. Lactic acid, where do we find that? Milk. Crazy, everybody loves milk punches now. Aww, I love that. When you do a milk punch, you notice how it clarifies and then it has this really bright acidity? It's lactic acid. What else has acid? Carbonic acid? Anybody know what carbonic acid? You should know. Carbon dioxide. Anything that's carbonated, any drink that's carbonated has acid in it. It will register, it will stimulate those acidic taste buds. Are all of those acids different in your mouth? Yes, obviously so. So if you have something with citric acid, and it is the brightest acid you could think of, and you have you're going to need something with a lot of sugar to balance that, right? So you know your sugar source is probably not going to be a low sugar source. You're going to need like a syrup. But if you have something with like tartaric acid, grape acids, which would be like your vermouths or your wines or your champagnes, your sugar source is probably going to be a little bit lower, right? Because you got to find balance between those acids. And I hope that you understand that your lime juice and lemon juice cocktails don't need the same sugar source as maybe your vermouth cocktails. And that's why martinis are great. Does that all make sense? Okay. I'm going to try and get through this real fast. This is the last one we have. Factors that affect your flavor perception. The most important thing for you to take away out of all of this is that flavor is subjective. Flavor is subjective. Flavor is based on your age. Unfortunately, the older we get, the less we taste. Yeah, you know. Around the age of 50, your taste buds will stop regenerating as quickly. So you will have scientifically less taste buds than other people. And if you've ever noticed that older people tend to put a lot more sugar, a lot more salt or pepper on their food, and they don't taste it as much. Or older women wear a lot of perfume. Yeah, it's because they don't taste and smell as much. It just happens. I talked about sex as being an effective, has an effect on flavor, and it does because in general women tend to be more sensitive to bitters, and that is about it, but it is a genetic thing. Hunger is really important to remember. Don't do R&D when you're hungry. Your body needs and is craving food, so everything will taste better when you're hungry. Your body will need to get nutrients, so it's telling you to eat more. If you've ever noticed when you're hungry and you salivate, and you swallow your saliva and you get more hungry, it's a natural mechanism for your body to try and get you to eat. It's saying, hey, I need nutrients and I need you to actually feed me so I can survive. So you swallow your saliva and it stimulates those juices. Culture, this is pretty self-explanatory, right? Everyone understands it, the way you were raised and the foods you grew up on, and if you've ever traveled, which everyone should travel in this world, culture absolutely affects the way that you perceive flavor. Smoking, sorry smokers, I know, it sucks. Smoke is a chemical, it does kill your taste buds. I do have one saving grace for you. If you quit smoking in 7 to 10 days, your taste buds will regenerate and you will taste better. I promise. I'm just here to tell you to quit smoking. As a former smoker, it is amazing when all of a sudden you realize, you're like, this is the best shit I've ever had in my life. It's not, you're not killing your taste buds anymore. Obesity and disease definitely affects, we've learned obviously with COVID that disease can affect your flavor. Chemotherapy, all of those things, cancer patients, absolutely changes the nutrients your body needs and absolutely changes the way that you perceive flavors. Pregnancy is an easy one. Colds, flus, allergies, pretty self-explanatory. If you can't smell, you can't perceive flavor. Also temperature is a big one. If you've ever opened a can of soup and you don't smell anything and then you put it on the stove and you start to cook it, right, and you release those volatiles in the air and then all of a sudden the whole room smells. Temperature affects the way we taste things. The colder something is, the less you will taste it, flavor. The warmer something is, the more you will taste it. And you see wine tasters warming up the white wine so they get more of the aromatics. If you really if you think about the science of it, it's just the same as atoms. Solid, liquid, gas, right? The closer the atoms are together, the more solid something is. So the more you heat it up, the more you're releasing those atoms, those volatiles into the air. They'll travel up the retronasal passage or the orthonasal passage. They'll land on the olfactory receptor, and your brain will go, that's a strawberry, or that's a pear. And the warmer something is, the more you can taste it. Palate adaptation. This is probably one of my favorite ones. Have you ever noticed when you walk into a room with a fire burning, and you smell smoke, and then an hour later you don't smell smoke, right? Does that mean that the smoke's gone? It does not. So as human beings, we are constantly trying to be aware. We're evaluating our environment for dangers. Most importantly, we use our sense of sight. There's a fucking fire over there. Oh, okay. But the other one we use, one of the other ones we use, is our sense of smell. Because back in the caveman days, we needed to be alerted if a bear was walking in the room, if there's a fire in the corner. And what our brain does is if there's a fire, hey, smoke, 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 smoke. It's fire, 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 fire. And it does that for 15, 20 minutes. And then, if you don't move and you don't react, your brain goes, man, I've been telling her for 20 minutes there's a fire, she's not paying attention, but I need to make sure I'm aware of other things, because what if there is a frickin' bear coming in the room? So I'm gonna put this smell on the back burner. I'm gonna turn it down. I'm gonna turn the volume on the smoke down, because I've told her, and she's not paying attention, so it must not be important. So I'm gonna turn the volume on the smoke down, so that in case a big giant bear comes in the room, she'll pay attention. Does that make sense? And anyone who's if you've ever done R&D on a cocktail, or if you've ever done wine tasting and you see people smelling their arm, or you don't smell anything anymore, it's called palate adaptation. Walk away from the drink, come back 30 minutes later, you'll all of a sudden smell all of the pear again. It is not that it's not there, it's that your body has turned it down, because it's just too much for your brain to really evaluate everything else. Disease, palate adaptation, cool. Woo! Sorry, I try and talk fast. So essentially that's really how the body works when registering taste. Most important thing, pay attention to your acids, pay attention to your sugars. Those are the two things we use in cocktails the most to balance each other. If you don't have balance, you don't get the next level. You don't get to achieve the core memory with the guest. And that is our goal. We want guests to leave remembering us forever. That's where we get to put the ego in. Not about the best tasting thing, but we want them to remember us forever. We want them to go to the next bar and be like, you know, this is okay, but that one drink I had from that one bartender, I want that again. And that's what we want to achieve. So make drinks for other people, not for yourself. Make sure you have balanced menus. Make sure you taste things with your nose plugged. I taste all of my drinks with my nose plugged. It's not a disrespect, it's literally just tasting things. Questions? Your taste buds will never get better, it's your brain. So the question was, how do you get better at tasting? And this was something that I really focused on. So for me, when I re-register smells, the first thing I do is I blindfold myself. I try not to look at anything, and I really want to pay attention to two things, smell and taste, but I want to evaluate those things separately. I don't want to evaluate them at the same time. So I'll plug my nose and I'll taste something, like, so let's just say I've never had a strawberry before. I don't want to see the strawberry, because for us, sense of sight is very important. So I'll put myself in when real big sciencey tasters, we put ourselves in a dark room, the same temperature, no music, no other stimuli that we can. And I try and completely shut off the sense of sight. And right now I just want to register the flavor of something. So I'm going to plug my nose and I'm going to taste it and I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to say, I know this is a strawberry. What is the balance between the sweet and the sugar and the salty? And then I'm going to smell it. And I'm going to tell myself, this is the strawberry. And I'll always remember the strawberry is this. But if you try and eliminate the other senses, you'll get better at recognizing it through taste and smell. The problem is, for us as humans, we're so reliant on our sense of sight that when we try and smell something, unless we see it, we have a hard time recognizing it. So turn those things off. Turn off your sense of sight and re-register everything as an actual smell. It becomes easier to recognize those things. Cool? Yay! I appreciate you all. Onus Glassware sponsored this. They are amazing. They're great to me. I don't know if you knew, but I made a glassware for them. It's called The Glitch. It's right up here. If some of them disappeared, I wouldn't be upset. Don't tell them. Please take one. I will tell people the reason why I designed this glass. I love highballs, right? I am a highball drinker from hell, and I always hated the fact that there wasn't really cool glassware for highballs. It was just the same freaking thing. So I designed a glass that I thought would be great for highballs. It captures the buzz, it's visual, it's fun, it's tactile, your hands fit on it. Those things are important to me because with a highball, how do I create a new experience for someone? It's a freaking highball. But highballs are delicious. Collins glasses are boring to me, sorry, but they just are. And I did this and I was amazed at how many people were like, finally, we have a really cool highball glass. Please don't underestimate the power of your glassware. Anybody that, we live in a world of Instagram. I think it's becoming more aware now. Don't underestimate the power of your garnishes. Don't underestimate the power of your glassware. Don't underestimate the power of yourselves, your bodies, your everything. But in order to be creative, you really have to think about everything. So thank you, Onus. Thank you, Onus.
Yeah.